Coach Stallings, I hope you're having a great week, sir. Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa.
Right, I'm doing fine. It's absolutely gorgeous day, and I understand that it's pretty there too. So anyway, I'm doing fine.
Yeah, we had mid-80s yesterday. We had the severe weather that you guys had yesterday that rolled in late last night, but we're all surviving. We're just ready for spring football to continue, and Alabama's got their first big scrimmage on Saturday of spring 2018. So the first spring scrimmage on Saturday.
It's the first one. That's not the last one. When's the last spring practice?
A-Day, which is April the 21st, and as you know, that will be a little more open because it'll be televised by ESPN, and then there'll be a second scrimmage, and that is next week. So there'll be 1, 2, and 3, and the third one will be the April the 21st deadline, A-Day, that all of us will gather inside Bryant-Denny Stadium.
What kind of crowd are you expecting?
Well, we want to see if we can make the fire marshal work on Saturday. Is our goal, Coach, and I'm trying to campaign for at least 100,000, maybe plus, but we'll see.
Man. You know, I wish that they would at least charge this is a suggestion that you might make to Nick, that charge $1 a person and let the captains decide who should get the money and give it to charity. It'd be a great way to teach the young men how to give back and take some of that money and establish a charity, and maybe 2 or 3 different ones, and let the captains make the decisions. And I just think it'd be some good publicity for the University of Alabama.
Well, Coach, speaking of A-Day and all the different things, I think one of the things that's really cool, and I don't know if you did this, but Coach Saban does it where the winner eats steak and the loser eats beans. And actually, I think it's beans and Winnie dogs or something like that. They do. Did you ever did anything like that? I mean,
you know, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea, but divide them up equally. Sometimes that's sort of hard to do, and so they're all on the same page, and when they're through, they all play together. So I don't think I did that. Had to do it over with. I may have done it though.
Coach, last week we were talking about Mr. Eddie Conyers, and we brought up I think it was Jay Barker getting hit, and you told us a story because of you bringing it up, and I don't know if you were able to listen. We were talking about Mr. Eddie Conyers. About 10 minutes after last Wednesday, after you hung up, he called in and said, "Sure, I remember what Coach Stallings was talking about," and he shared a story. We got him in studio today for 90 minutes. He was on the radio telling stories about old times.
Well, he's a real legend around there as far as football is concerned. He's officiated every spring practice for I don't know how long, and he does an outstanding job. And his wife used to work for me. She was my receptionist at one time, and so I'm very fond of Eddie Conyers.
Well, and actually, Eddie would have been here, Coach, when you were assistant coach under Coach Bryant. He started in 1962 is what he told us. His first official, Coach Bryant called him out, and he went out. 1962 is when he started. So you would have been here in Tuscaloosa as an assistant coach.
Right. I was there, and I think I went to A&M in 1965, finished 64 season and went 65. So, yeah. I've been affiliated with Eddie for a long time, and he always played in my golf tournament too. And
he said
he always had a group that come out and play, and he's just a lot of fun to be around.
Yeah, he shared some memories about the Rice tournament, and Coach, he was talking about Joe Namath, and he said, when they first walked Joe Namath out there, he said he looks up, and you may remember this story. He said Joe Namath was up in the tower with Coach Bryant.
That's absolutely right. We didn't know anybody know who he was, and we saw this guy sort of had a zoot suit looking on. He had his coat and tie, and somebody said, "Well, who is that up there with Coach Bryant?" Somebody said it was Joe Namath, and that's the first time I ever remember seeing him. But he was. I don't know how long he stayed up there, but he went up. He's the only guy that I know of that ever went up on Coach Bryant's tower with Coach Bryant.
What was it about Joe Namath that made him such a special football player?
Well, first of all, he was an outstanding athlete. I've said this on a number of occasions. he's probably as good a safety as I've ever coached. Never did get him in a game, but we always had a prevent defense. The game was over. They had time to run one play and would put Namath back at safety. Did it in practice all the time. He had a great knack of intercepting football, knowing where the quarterback's going to throw it. Had old long fingers anyway, and we'd get in that situation in practice, but Coach Brown would never let me put him in a game. But he would have been an outstanding free safety if he'd just played that position.
Well, Coach, we also had a defensive back on yesterday. He's going to be doing a big thing this weekend in our state, and that was Mark McMillian, who played for you here at the University of Alabama in the 90s. And he contributed a lot of his success in the National Football League back to your fundamentals and teaching and those defensive back skills. Mark McMillian was on yesterday sharing some great Coach Stallings memories.
And, Mark McMillian, he wasn't really very tall. He's best I remember is about 5'7", and they said that he was just too short. He couldn't play man-to-man. And I said, they don't throw to the receiver when he's covered. And I'll assure you that Mark McMillian will cover his receiver. And so he played pro ball for a number of years, and he was just an outstanding man-to-man player. And what a quality individual he was, too. I'm glad you had him on the show.
Coach, he shared a story now. His favorite Coach Stallings memory is he shared several, but one of the ones, he said, I was traveling with Coach Stallings, and he said, I went up, and Coach always made us dress proper. He said, when we represented the University of Alabama, we traveled, we dressed in a suit and tie. He said, I went up to my hotel room, and I happened to change, and I wanted to run downstairs to the lobby to get an ice cream. He said, I did that with my not a suit and tie on. He said, Coach Stallings let me have it because I wasn't wearing the proper clothing. He said, I never missed dress code again. He shared that story about you and Mark McMillian.
Well, I did, and, if they stay in the room, but if they left the room and went down the lobby of the hotel, I wanted them to be properly dressed. So I don't really remember that story, but I'm sure it happened. But when they just took the chance of whether or not I'd see them or not. But if I saw them and they weren't properly dressed, we visited about it.
It was fun, and he talked about the impact that you had made on his life, and it was a lot of fun to visit with Mark McMillian. Coach, he was drafted like in the 10th round.
And the people kept saying he wasn't good enough, and I kept saying he was. I said, I'll guarantee you, Mark McMillian, I'd say that he was 5'7" at the most, but that rascal could play, and he could tackle, and he was an outstanding defensive player. And I said he can play in the National Football League, and he played for a number of years. And what's he doing now? Do you know?
Yes, sir. He is working, and I know you're familiar with the blue-gray football. If you might have heard, you remember they had an all-star game with collegiate players. Well, now they're doing it with high school players. And one of the things that they do is they travel around state by state, and they do like a high school combine where these players that might have a chance to play college ball, they do them just like the NFL combine. And they do these 40 times and the shuttle and the leap and the jump and all these different things. And they put this data up, and these college coaches go and get this information, kind of like certifying their 40-yard dash, and they do like a high school NFL combine. So he travels state by state by state, still in the game with football.
I didn't know that, and what a great idea, and he's a great representative for the University of Alabama, I'll assure you.
And one other story he shared, you talked about, he said his agent visited with Coach Stallings. He said, we were in a room, and his agent told Coach Stallings, he said, well, we're going to go ahead and try to get him some contacts in the Canadian Football League. He said, man, you had a fit telling him, said, no, this guy can play in the NFL. You don't have to go to Canadian. He said he fired his agent like just a few months later. He said because Coach Stallings let that agent have it right there in that room.
Well, sometimes things happen that I have a tendency to forget. I do remember telling his agent that he could play in the National Football League. He didn't need to be thinking about going to Canada. I do remember that, and I don't remember how upset I was, but I'm sure I let him know my feelings. You
were just taking up for your players, Coach. Let's go to a lot of different phone calls right here. The phone lines have been jammed up for quite a while. As always, Red, you're first up with Coach Stallings.
Good evening, Coach. How you doing today, sir?
Red, I'm doing fine. It's absolutely gorgeous day. We got a little rain yesterday, and it's a little cool. I just hope that we don't have any freeze, because I've already got my tomatoes put out, and they can't handle that cold weather.
No, they can't. I've been itching to plant mine, but I'm trying to hold off another 2 weeks.
Well, I probably should have, but I had my ground ready, and I had some. Anyway, I've planted mine already.
Yeah, it's hard once you break that ground. It's hard not to put something in it.
Yeah, it's hard to not go ahead and do it when the ground is in good shape and you've got the plants. And anyway, I just went ahead and planted them.
Yes, sir. Coach, when you were here at Alabama, who was the toughest SEC coach to prepare against?
Probably Florida, Spurrier. He just did a better job in the passing game than I did, and really the rest of the coaches. So his team was always superbly prepared, and they always had an outstanding quarterback. And you got the very best you had when you played Florida. So I'd say Spurrier probably.
All right. Now, you may not want to answer this question, but who was the most arrogant coach you played against here?
Say that again.
Who would you say was the most arrogant coach that you played against?
Arrogant? There
Yes.
wasn't many arrogant people that played against Alabama. They may have been arrogant somewhere else, but well, most of the time they were underdog anyway. And when you're underdog, you're not going to be too arrogant. So I can't remember any of them.
Ain't it?
Yeah. Something about winning games, it'll humble you a little bit.
Amen. Well, Coach, I enjoy talking to you every week, and it's been a pleasure. Tell Miss Ruth Ann hello, and you have a blessed day, sir.
Listen, I hope you're feeling good, Red. I have you in my prayers, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Same here.
Yeah, Coach Red's been telling us he's got him a new phone, one of them smartphones, and he doesn't know how to use it. So, I mean, can you give him some advice on these smartphones? He said there's too many buttons on this phone that he's got.
I cannot give him a bit of advice. I've got a flip phone, and that's as simple as you can get. If you can just flip it on, you can dial it and hit send, and that's as far as. I don't even know how to erase some calls. I'm not too knowledgeable on those kind of things. My children and my grandchildren, they can tell you, but I just can't tell you. I can tell you how to operate a flip phone. That's it.
I got you. Let's go to Bama Bo. Bama Bo, you're on with Coach Stallings.
Hey, Coach Stallings. How you doing this afternoon?
Bo, I'm doing fine. How you, hon?
I am great. Hey, I have a question, but quickly, I love defense. Like, in every Alabama game, that's what I watch is defense. I watch the defense. So I was listening to you recently on an interview, and you were talking about the importance of, when you would evaluate DBs, the importance of man-to-man. And it was really fascinating. And you kind of briefly mentioned that now they teach more zone. And I guess my question to you is, and I'll hang up and listen, I kind of just want to know, why is that? Why is man-to-man maybe not quite as important, if that makes any sense, as it used to be? And why is there more zone? And I'll hang up and listen, and thank you for taking my call.
First of all, zone is easier to play. Man-to-man is tougher to play. Zone, you just sort of drop back in an area and you make a play on the football. Man-to-man, you're shutting a receiver out, either taking his outside away from him or his inside away from him, or if you're in the plus territory, you got to cover him all over the field. Man-to-man requires a lot more discipline, a lot more skill, and it's just harder to play. Very few college teams, or most college teams, play zone. And so when they get into the pros, they have a hard time adjusting. Some pros play man-to-man. The advantage of playing man-to-man is you can blitz. And if you can put pressure on the quarterback, but in order to do that, everybody's got to be able to cover a receiver man-to-man. So that's the reason you don't see a whole lot of blitzing, because the defensive backs cannot play good man-to-man.
Great question there from Bama Bo. Thank you calling us in Birmingham, Alabama. Corey in Trussville, Alabama. Corey, you're on with Coach Stallings.
Hey, Coach Stallings, how are you doing this evening?
Corey, I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking.
It's great to talk to you. My question is, when you coached at Alabama and you coached the spring game, if the offense was having a great day or the defense was having a great day, how would you determine if it was a successful spring, like the results you may have wanted? Like
first of all, the spring practice did not depend on having a good spring game to have a good spring practice. What I wanted out of spring practice is I wanted to know without question who was the best player at each position and who was the best backup at each position. So if I knew offensively and defensively who my starters were and who the backup players were, then it was a good spring practice. So the spring game was just sort of to entertain the people that paid to come see the game, and we'd have some kind of little deal going on, but the importance was before the game. The spring game in itself was not all that big a deal for me. I just hoped that nobody would get hurt.
And also, when you coached at Alabama, was there ever, Alabama's trying to get home and home series in the future? Was there ever a home and home series you wanted to ever try to coach when you coached at Alabama? Was there ever a team you wanted to play on the schedule that you wanted the team you wanted to play?
Yeah, there was quite a few, but we had an athletic director when I was coaching there, Hootie Ingram. He made the decisions on who we would play. He would run it by me, and I didn't really care other than I didn't like to play the teams that we were supposed to beat 40 and 50 points. I got no joy out of beating somebody bad. In fact, my entire career, I never beat anybody bad. We would get ahead of them and not let other people play. But one year when I was at Texas A&M, my 3 preseason games was LSU and Baton Rouge, Ohio State, and Columbus, the University of Michigan, and Ann Arbor. Now, I do not recommend that kind of schedule of Alabama, I'll assure you.
Corey, thank you for your call, and I hope you have a great day. Corey in Trussville, Alabama. Let's go from Corey to JK here in Tuscaloosa. JK, you're on with Coach Stallings.
Give me the good news, Coach.
Hey, JK. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. The weather's pretty nice here in Tuscaloosa, and I've been doing some gardening today, so life is good, Coach.
Well, have you got things planted?
Yes, sir. I'm finally getting some things in the ground. I hope we don't. They threatened a little bit of a frost tonight, but I hope not, because I just put some tomato plants in the ground. It seemed like every time I put a tomato plant in the ground, that night it'll frost. But
well, there's a rule of thumb when the bodark branches and the leaves get the size of squirrels' ears, and not supposed to be any more frost. But if you think it is going to frost, you need to cover up those tomato plants.
Yes, that's what I'm doing now, cutting plastic to cover them up. Coach, how's your rehab going?
It's going good. I do it 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, an hour, and it's a full, solid hour on different things, and I think it's helping me. I really do. I'd be in bad shape if I didn't have the rehab, because I don't do enough walking around the ranch. It's sort of hard for me to walk, but I can do the rehab.
Yes, sir. Coach, we're hoping that we get a little more production out of our tight ends this year. We've got some potentially great tight ends here at Alabama, and I believe our top tight end last year, Irv Smith, caught 14 passes for 3 touchdowns. And, Coach, how important was the tight end in your offensive scheme?
First of all, my tight end, he won the job because he was a good blocker. We just throw him a bone every once in a while, throw him pass, keep him happy. But in order to be a tight end at Alabama when I was there, you had to be a blocker first. That was the first responsibility. Then he was involved in the passing game, but if he didn't catch any passes, that didn't bother me as long as he could block well.
I think that's still pretty much the maximum around here, Coach, because our tight ends do more blocking than they do route running. But I wanted to know that because I knew you had some great blocking tight ends, and that was part of our great running game when Derek Lassick was there with you. And I wanted to ask you that question, and make sure you stay on your rehab. I'm hoping that old right leg will wake up for you a little bit there, Coach.
I appreciate that, and thanks for even mentioning it. And I'm doing about as well as I can, tell you the truth.
Thank you, JK.
Well, it's always a blessing to talk to you, Coach. I hope to talk to you next week.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Coach, you got these phone calls lit up like a Christmas tree here in Tuscaloosa. Let's continue taking a few more calls. Let's go down to Pensacola, Florida. Chris, you're on with Coach Stallings.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Chris, I'm doing fine, thank you.
Well, good to talk to you. It's the first time I ever got a chance to talk to you, and just enjoy listening to Ryan all the time. And Ryan knows I'm a regular of the show pretty much all the time. So, but just wanted to ask a question. This is just one of the questions that I've been burning. How would you, in your situation that's going on right now in Alabama with the two quarterbacks, how would you handle that situation out in this field right now? You've got Jalen Hurts and you've got Tua. How would you handle it?
Well, I never did have two quarterbacks to alternate back to back. I'd say it's a good problem to have, but somewhere along the line, I think Coach Saban will settle on who's the first quarterback and who's his backup. I'd say it's a good problem to have. Anytime you've got two and one's not having a good day, you can always put the other one in, and that happened in the championship game. Alabama wouldn't have probably been in the championship game, but that hadn't been for the quarterback that started the game, but he wasn't having a good day, and they put in another player, and he had made some great throws and helped Alabama win the game. So that's the advantage of having more than one good quarterback.
Well, I know in the national championship game in '93, I've watched the game. I was a young tyke when that game happened, and I know that your offense was built more around Derek Classic, Martin Houston, the big boys, Sherman Williams, but you had Jay who could throw, who was a game manager, Now, I guess in that championship game, would you have, if Miami stopped the run and you had to throw the football, would you have made the decision to change quarterbacks, or you would have went with
probably
Jay
not. We'd won 11 in a row with Jay Barker, 12 in a row, and I think the Coach Saban made the right decision when he changed quarterbacks in the championship game. I would have had a hard time making that, but that's the reason they pay him the big bucks, and I'm sitting on the sideline. But anyway, that was an excellent decision he made. I would have had a hard time making that decision.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I hope you have a great day. Chris in Pensacola, Florida, thank you for listening to the show, and I appreciate your support. Let's take one more final call. Cass, you're on with Coach Stallings. Hello?
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 Yeah, you're on with Coach Stallings.
Oh, hey, sorry. My name is Cass Taylor. I'm a student at the University of Alabama. I wanted to get Coach Stallings' views on a particular situation with the university when it comes to student representation within the state. So from the time where you coached and played at the University of Alabama, the overwhelming majority of the student body was in-state students. And I know you come from Texas. And I was wondering what your ideas are on this situation now where the University of Alabama underrepresents in-state students at the university, at the state flagship.
Cass, listen, and I don't want to get Coach Stallings. Obviously, he may not know a lot about the debate we're having, but I don't want to put him in a weird spot, Cass. I appreciate it, though.
I was just wondering, because I believe most people in the state probably don't know about this at the time. I certainly didn't until I came here.
Okay,
so I was just curious.
Okay, thanks, Cass.
First of all, the people who pay, this is just a personal opinion, but when you're out of state, you pay out-of-state tuition, and it can get pretty expensive. The people in the state of Alabama support the University of Alabama and Auburn and the various schools, and everything being equal, I think they should have the first opportunity to go there. Everything's based on SAT, ranking class, and things like that. If you are an out-of-state student, you've got to pay out-of-state tuition. And I think, just personal opinion, the University of Alabama, first of all, is for the University of Alabama graduates. Residents.
Thank you, Coach. Coach, we got a guy coming up in just a couple of minutes that is going to be a part of he's on the board there at the Rise School. John Sisson is going to be here with us in just a couple of minutes, and we're going to visit about the Rise Tournament of Champions for 2018 coming up April 26th and 27th at North River Yacht Club here in Tuscaloosa. We're going to be talking about different information, how folks can get involved, corporate sponsorship, team sponsorship, and the chip-in for Rise. The big event on Thursday from 6 until 8 that I know you're going to be a part of. And we're looking forward to having Coach Saban out there as well. So looking forward to talking about that with John Sisson coming up right after you.
Yeah, well, I just appreciate all the publicity you can give the golf tournament. Every dime goes to the students at the Rise program, and it's the best of its kind in the world. People will move to Tuscaloosa just for the opportunity for their child who has special needs to go to the Rise program. So the people that play in that tournament, the people that sponsor it, is very dear to my heart, and I just appreciate everybody being associated with it.
Hey, Coach, no doubt. And, hey, let me say this right here. We always have a lot of fun on the interviews. I got a guy down in Gulfport, Mississippi that's an LSU fan. He tweets in and says, I love Coach Stallings, even though he was on the other side. He's also the great ambassador of the game of college football and a disciple of Bear Bryant. Will down in Gulfport wants to say hello. He's just an LSU guy listening out there to the Alabama show. We appreciate Will tweeting in and wanted us to pass that on to you, Coach.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'll tell you what, anytime you play LSU, you better button on your bonnet because it's going to be a tough game. And I always look forward to playing LSU, whether it's in Tuscaloosa or in Baton Rouge.
Coach, we'll talk to you next week. I hope you have a great weekend, sir.
And thanks for supporting the program, the golf tournament, Ryan. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely, Coach. Have a great afternoon. Thank you, sir.